Hey guys, there's not a lot of us here tonight, the open hack. I'm surprised it's just a few of us. It looks like you're talking, Brian, but you're muted still.
I was not talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. I thought I saw your lips going. Is
He's
it,
working on his podcast.
what's that?
He's working on his podcast.
Ah, very cool.
On
So
breaks, I just like to upload it, but yeah, Artrell called me.
what is it?
It's a joke, Jennifer. I'm not making a podcast.
It's
He
a
was joking.
joke?
Yeah.
See, at first I thought it was a joke, and then I thought you were serious.
No, I'm totally joking. I'm just messing with him.
I'm like, the podcast, cool. All right, well, I guess there's more of us. My dates are all mixed up, so I didn't know.
Yes, my understanding is we have class tonight. I don't think there was an open hack, at least not the ones that we go to tonight. I could be wrong.
Open hack's like the second Thursday of the month.
Yeah, I'm not sure the day, to be honest. Like, I'm not sure like what week it falls on.
Yeah, our trust is typically the second Thursday in every month. But if you add the Syracuse.io channel on Slack, you'll see all the updates there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Hey, Artrell, if you can't find it, just send me your email and I'll send you an invite to the channel.
All right, cool. Thank you. Actually, I wasn't looking at it looking for it immediately, but since you're talking about it, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Hey guys, sorry I am late. What's everyone doing on this Thursday? Glad it's our Friday? All right, I'm actually gonna kick it off before we even do stand up with a terms generation. So I know we've missed vocab in a couple the past days, so I want to give everyone a chance to throw terms out and have them captured in the outlines. So let me pull that up. All right, what are some terms that we've used in the past week that we want to capture and define for our notes. Go ahead, Exona. I can see you going for it.
Use effect. That's the only one I could think of.
Use effect.
I was just trying to say that too before I realized I was muted. I was like,
Use effect is a React hook, i.e. built into React, that allows us to run code either when a variable changes or when a component first renders, i.e. loads. Useful for making API calls. Any other terms? What are just some general React concepts that we've learned or used in the past week or so?
props, state,
Props, state,
components.
components,
um,
Fetch calls for making APIs.
fetch,
Async,
async. If I can spell it.
We've used ternary operators more.
Ooh, that's a good one. Not something that is specific to React, but something we certainly use a lot more of in React than in our regular HTML or JavaScript.
Brew? Could that be one?
What's that?
Brew?
Brew, we use brew.
What is that?
While we're at it, NPM and NPX.
Object destructuring.
Object destructuring.
What's homebrew?
Homebrew is when we do like brew install node. It is our package manager for the Mac. So
That's right. Thanks.
any other terms before we go through and do quick definitions of these?
Dot map and spread operator.
Wonder if did they give me there was a new feature that you could insert code blocks, but I don't know if it's rolled out to all of Google Docs yet. Doesn't look like it. Any other terms?
Dot then.
Throw that after async await. And we're going to say promises. It's a good list. Anything else?
Import and export.
Sure.
Oh, and vanilla HTML.
Vanilla JavaScript.
Yes.
So we call JavaScript. No, we call React chocolate. But it really should be.
For the longest time, I saw a bunch of job descriptions that were saying vanilla JavaScript, and I'm like, well, I know JavaScript, but I've never heard of this framework called vanilla. Like, I don't know what that is. So then I finally realized that they just meant JavaScript without a framework.
It's too bad. I like food references.
Any other terms? All right, we're gonna go through and define these. If anyone would like an example reminder of what this is, like if you see the definition and you're like, okay, but how do we use that? When do we use that? Just raise your hand and let me know, and I'll fire up a text editor and we can do a little example of that. So, yeah, Brian.
Before we get started on the definition of use effect, do you think you could like explain like the biggest difference between using use state and using use effect? I kind of like take it to mean like use state, use like if there's like an input or like something that you want the page to re-render. And use effect is more so running a code block, but sometimes I feel like state can run a code block. So could you say like in your words, like what's the biggest difference between use effect and use state?
Yeah, so I'm going to delete this because we're going to cover this later in class tonight, but I'm going to do a quick use state so we can compare the two of them. Okay, so use effect and use state both come from React, and we know that because we have to import both of them. Because they have the word use in them, we call them a hook, which is just a group of functions or a type of function that comes from React. And in fact, we can even make our own hooks, but that's like React level 400. That's a little bit more advanced, right? So we use state whenever we have a special variable that gets updated to show the end user. It's a special way to re-trigger the render without having to update the inner HTML ourselves. So whenever we do a use state, that's going to store a variable inside of it. Let's say it's going to start that variable off at 0. Because we are using use state always returns out two variables. One is the temperature, and one is a function in order to update that temperature. So we use the temp just like we use a normal variable. In other words, we can put that down here. And now whenever we call that function set temp, this is automatically going to update without us having to use .innerHTML. So state is in its most basic form a special type of variable that cannot be updated directly, but when using the set function to set a new value, it will also update our HTML to include the new value. So the flow that we do there is we create our variable in state. That gives us access to both the value of the variable in state and the function to update that variable in state. Then we use that variable in our HTML to go ahead and show that information. And then finally, we are able to use the set function in order to update that variable to show whatever we want to show in the return. Use effect is a little different in that we use a use effect whenever we want a code block, normally a function, to run when the app or whenever the component shows up for the first time, or when a variable changes. So we use this use effect here, and we put in this empty parenthesis or empty array. That empty array is saying, hey, when this component first shows up, go ahead and run the code in this block. What that allows us to do is whenever we actually call this set temp, what ends up happening, or what any state function is, it goes through and it reruns all of the code in this component in order to return out the updated value. In order to prevent this API call from happening multiple times whenever we update any variable in state, we do this use effect instead, which is basically telling React only run this code the first time the component shows up. If down the road there's an input that gets typed into and we have to update something in state, don't rerun this API call. Only run this API call when the component first shows up. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Cool. And I'll add to the end of this, prevents functions from running multiple times when a component is re-rendered. In other words, when state gets updated. Archer.
Stupid question.
Mhm.
So use effect is different from a prop, right?
Yes.
Okay.
A prop is a way to pass information from a parent component into a child component.
Okay.
So our prop is right here, and here, and here. So there are 3 props that we use in forecast day. We can name our props whatever we want, but then we have to use it in 2 places. One place we got to tell, hey, forecast day, you're getting access to props called day, icon, and temp. And now, because we have told forecast day you're about to receive these props here, we are able to use them in the 3rd place in line. So a prop is a way to take information that is accessible up in the parent component, send it into the child component, and then we can use them in the child directly in the function. Now, to further confuse you, we can use state to pass, we can use a prop to pass state. In other words, if we wanted to, we could do all of the work up here, and we can set the temperature in here. But if we would like our forecast day to know what the temperature is from the state, we could use temp here, and that would also work. So that is really compounding everything. That is using a use effect to set state, to update the state variable, to pass it in a prop to the child component. So they are different, but they can be used together.
All right. Just to confuse myself even more, is so would use effect be part of a child, or is it something completely different?
Use effect could be used in the child, but is completely different. Just
Okay.
like use state could be used in the child. So if we wanted to, for whatever reason, we said, we wanted every time a forecast day showed up, we wanted it to console log out whatever the current day was, or whatever day got passed in as a prop. We would use that use effect to say, hey, when the forecast day shows up for the first time, console log out the current day is, and whatever got passed in from the prop.
Okay.
So we use the use effect. I know it's kind of tricky, but what ends up happening is the return of this function ends up running more than we are used to in JavaScript. This return runs whenever anything in that component is updated. In other words, when we type a letter into an input and that uses the set state and the on change and all of that stuff, this return is going to rerun. But we may not want this to log out every time the component gets updated. We may only want it to run when the component first loads. And so that's what we use that use effect for here, to say, hey, this should only happen the first time this component loads. And if it's updated after that, you don't need to go rerun that code.
Okay. Thank you, Max.
React is certainly tricky because it intermingles all of these different concepts. This is an example of it using a use effect as well as using a prop. So to take it back, the prop is just a way to pass information up here. This is the parent component. How do we know it's the parent, right? This is all the way up in the app. But basically, whenever we call another component inside a different component, well, the component we're calling it in is called the parent, and then whatever it ends up going in is called the child. And the reason why we need the props up here is so that we can make one reusable component that ends up passing in different information. And these props could be strings. You see they can be numbers, or they can even be variables as well. This is the name of the prop, and this is the value of the prop. Any questions on that? And it's okay to say, you said this 4 times, Max, I still don't get it.
Maybe the 7th time it'll make sense to us.
Was there any particular one that you wanted to rehear, Jennifer?
I think I'm getting that a little bit more. Oh gosh, I can't find my screen. Oh, I can't scroll your code, can I?
No.
Okay. There was one thing I wasn't. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, how do we put a temperature in there and just leave it that way and not define it? But then that's why we have the geocoding.
Yes.
Yep, forgot about that one. Okay.
So this, we're going to go over this. We're going to go over this in class tonight of actually integrating our data from our API call in our use effect into state.
Okay.
And then we're going to do it over and over and over again. There's 2 new concepts we're going to learn tonight. One is called routing, and the other one is how we use images in React, because that's a little different. Those are the only 2 new concepts tonight, and then all of your favorites are coming at you with use effect, with state, with map, with all of those. We're going to go into our blog project and update that to be in React as well. So the good news is all of next week, no new concepts. We're going to get more practice with the new concepts from today with routing and with images. But other than that, we're just going to keep on practicing on this. So if at any point tonight you see the code, you get your code running, and then, or you don't get your code running, and then you go, yes, Max, but why? How do we know we need a use effect? How do we know we need state? How do we know, right? That those are all valid questions to ask. Okay, so I'm gonna let me clear this out so that when we get to it in class tonight, Oh, it's not where I wanted you to go. Okay. So let's try and do some definitions here. A component is a block of reusable code in React, may receive props, may contain state or other hooks like use effect. Always returns HTML code. Called by using JSX syntax. Must be title, not camel cased. In other words, we made our own component. That's a way of saying, like, we made our own little HTML tag. And in this example, it happened to receive props. In this example, it doesn't use any state or use effect. It's not using any hooks. It does return out some HTML. And the way we call this functional component is by calling it up here. And whenever we make our own component, we always have to title case it or sentence case it, meaning, hey, every word that we put in that component is going to be called a start with an uppercase letter. And while that may seem trivial, there is, I know at least one student that ran into saying, hey, why isn't my forecast day showing up? Everything down here was actually right. But because we didn't use an uppercase letter here, it looked at forecast day and tried to go to HTML and find something called forecast day. And it was like, I don't know what forecast day is. It's not a div, it's not a span, it's not an HR, it's not a p tag. I don't know what forecast day is. So that's how React tells our built-in HTML elements apart from our own components, is by using that capital letter there. Just like you'll never see a capital div, you'll never see a lowercase component that we made ourselves. Okay, fetch is a method built into the browser's JavaScript that allows us to make a request and receive a response from an API. Always returns a promise, so must be used with async await or dot then. Any questions on that? Okay, promises. A way to execute asynchronous code and still handle the response. In other words, go run this code in the background, and then when it's done, run this next function that has access to the results. So our then example from last night was, hey, go do this fetch. This is going to go run the API call in the background. And when the API call is done being run, then give me access to the results of it. Once we do that, parse out the JSON, and then when that JSON is done, give me the results of that parse. Async await. Another way to handle promises and async code in general by declaring a function as async we are able to say, make an API call and await it to be finished before we move on to our next piece of code. And then is going to be a callback used, a callback function used with a promise to handle the results of a promise when it is finished running asynchronously. Oh my God, no, I didn't. I've never spelled that word right in my life. Okay. Any questions on that so far? Ternary operators. These are inline if statements. We can say something like if the color is equal to blue, then our variable for whatever reason is going to be blue. That's a bad example. Let me do it something like if extra padding is equal to true, then our padding should be 30 pixels. Otherwise, it's going to be 10 pixels. So if our padding is, if extra padding is true, use value between question mark and colon, otherwise use value after colon. So we use our inline if statements a lot. In React, because we have that power of JSX, right? We're able to execute some JavaScript directly in our return. In this example, we're able to use the icon. We could do something like this to say, hey, if the temp is less than 32, then say burr, otherwise say balmy. That would just be a quick way to say, based off of the temperature, show burr or show balmy. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Max,
Mhm.
I don't see the ternary thing in here. The backticks. So we can do this type of thing even without it.
Backticks are a template literal.
Mm-hmm.
You can use a ternary in a template literal, or you can use a template literal without a ternary. So this is the ternary in its truest form. But if you wanted to do something with backticks, you could say something like my string equals the current temp is, and then use your $ curly braces. These $ curly braces are the part of the template literal. But inside that template literal, just like in our React, how we can use the curly braces to say, go evaluate out whatever this JavaScript is, we could do the same thing up here. So we could take this and put it in right here, and that would also work.
Okay.
So this is the ternary itself, the question mark and the colon. Those three pieces of it are what make up the ternary. This backtick means that it is a template literal, which is a type of string. And then the $ curly braces are what those backticks allow us to use to go take whatever the value is in here and put it into the string itself.
Okay.
We can use template literals without ternaries by just doing something like that. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Glad you asked that though, because that's a good one of we have so many JavaScript concepts and now JSX concepts layered into this that we want to make sure we get those terms right. Because believe it or not, I've been in an interview where the guy said, "What's a ternary operator?" and write one out for me. And he also said, "What's a template literal?" And I sat there and I was like, "Oh." He asked me that question like 3 years ago in an interview, and they were brand new to JavaScript, and I just didn't know. And he said, hint, backticks. And I went, oh, that's what a template literal is called. And, wrote out the code and had no problem for him. But depending on what kind of interview you have for getting a job, they may actually quiz you on vocabulary, which is why we spend the time in class going over these terms. Let me put this back to the way it was. Okay. Homebrew. Hopefully the last couple ones here go a little faster. A package manager for Mac OS. Similar to NPM in that it allows us to install other packages and programs from the terminal in a developer-friendly fashion. Just like we do our npm install and we install whatever node package we like, brew install is so that we can install a Mac OS package. Okay, npm, a package manager for Node, allows us to install Node packages that we reference in our code using import export or require. npx, a easy way to execute a npm package without having to install it. Most commonly used with, what command have we used with npx?
Create React app.
Create React app. So we use npm to install, we use npx to execute. X stands for execute. Finally, we've got object destructuring, a way to break apart an object into its own keys. So object destructuring is if we have some object and we call it A with a value of 1 and B with a value of 2. When we get access to obj, we would say obj A. But if we were referencing A and B over and over again, and we didn't want to say obj A dot A every time, what we could do is we could say const A equals obj. And now we can just console log A out directly. So it is a way to say, hey, take obj, break it apart based off of whatever keys I have over here to store in the value of that into A. Now you may say, Max, that's dumb. Why would you ever do that? You could just say const A equals obj dot A, and that would also work. The reason why we use destructuring is actually because, I'm going to copy this whole line, what's coming in from, actually, let me copy this whole component, from the forecast day is something called props. Props is actually an object. So if we get props in as the parameter, every time we reference those props, we have to say props.day, props.icon, and props.temp. This code would actually work just the same way. And there is no agreed upon standard of whether people prefer to use the props here and explicitly use props in the code, or to use what we call object destructuring. This object is being destructured. In other words, it's taking props and breaking out all of the key value pairs in props into its own values that we can use directly right here. In fact, we use array destructuring up. No, we didn't have a use state yet. We use array destructuring right here. Use state actually returns two variables in an array. Whatever the first thing in that array that's getting returned is going to be destructured into our value called temp. And the second thing that's returned is going to go into set temp. So object and array destructuring is certainly a more advanced concept, but basically what it's doing is it's taking whatever is getting passed into it and breaking it apart into different pieces. In other words, destructuring it, so that we can access the values in it a little bit more easy, a little bit more directly. I'm going to label this as alternative way to receive and use props, and then I'm going to comment this whole thing out. Any questions on that? Okay, with second page almost got me. Couple more. .map, a way to loop over an array and return out newly formatted items for each item in the array. Commonly used in line of a return in React to loop over data to create a component for each one. We're going to see .map make a reappearance in tonight's code. Spread operator, a way to take an object, or more commonly an array, and spread the values of the item out into a new object or array. Commonly used to make a copy of the array. Any questions on that? Common example there, we could say const my AR equals 1, 2, 3. And if we made a copy of that by just saying my ARR, the copy array would actually be an array inside an array with 1, 2, 3. And that's not what we want. What we would really want is this would get us 1, 2, 3. In other words, go take all of the values inside the array and spread them out into this new array. Okay, almost at the finish line before we get into the fun stuff. Import export, a way to import either packages installed from npm or code we have defined in other files to make our code more legible. And via vanilla.js, we already defined as any JavaScript without a framework like React or jQuery or something like that. Okay, that was a lot of terms. We have any questions on any of that before we dive into new code?
Mm,
Okie doke. So where I am going to kick off tonight, I am going to head to my code. I'm going to go to my week 14, my day 2, and my weather. And before I duplicate this into my day 3, my node modules folder is going to be huge. It's going to be like 287 meg. Now, for the sake of not trying to fill up all of your hard drives, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete out this node modules and then reinstall it in the day 3. That way we don't end up having multiple copies of these node modules, but we do have a running copy of our code. So day over day, we can compare what we've added to it. So I'm going to delete, I single clicked on my node modules and I'm going to hit Command Delete, or you could drag it right to the trash can. After I have done that, I'm going to go back up and make my day 3 folder. I'm going to go to my day 2, select weather, hit Command C. I'm going to go back to my day 3 and hit Command V. My weather app, you will notice, copies a whole heck of a lot quicker because we deleted out those node modules. I'm going to pop that open in my VS Code. I'm going to open my package.json in integrated terminal. And if we tried to do an npm start here, you'll immediately get an error that says React scripts command not found. Well, that
Pardon
command,
me.
yep,
You said single click and Command D?
command delete.
Oh, okay. Because I was doing it was duplicating it. Delete.
Sorry, you can't just hit delete and have it delete by default. You have to hold in the command key first and then delete as a safety measure.
No, I did Command and the letter D. I didn't hear the delete. That's why I'm like, why is it copying? Okay.
Sorry, command delete the key.
All right, so that's the node modules folder.
Yes. In day 2 weather, you're going to delete it from the day 2. Then you're going to click on weather and hit Command C to copy the entire folder. And you're going to make your day 3 folder. And then inside the day 3 folder, you're going to hit Command V and that will paste it in. And then you can take this weather folder and pop it open in VS Code. Okay, once we're in our VS Code, we're going to right click, open an integrated terminal. We tried our npm start and it failed. It says React scripts command not found. That's because React scripts is in our node modules that we deleted. That's okay. Whenever we download someone else's project from the internet or starting our own project, whenever it has this package.json, it knows what needs to be installed into our node modules. In order to do that, we're going to hit npm install and hit enter. And what that is going to do is it's going to go into our package.json. It's going to figure out what all of the dependencies are that need to be installed. And it's going to generate out our node modules folder with everything inside of it. Once our npm install is done, we can run npm start and give it a second. And that's going to pop open our weather app to where we left off yesterday. I'm going to start a live share for you guys. Not that kind of live share. Okay.
So you're in package.json. JSON.
Put that in there. And kick off a poll. And Exona, go ahead.
Mine, when I put npm start, So I put npm. Oh, I spelled install wrong. Never mind.
Good catch.
All right, so I'm in week 13, day 3.
Yep, npm space install, enter.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm in VS Code.
Yep, right click on package.json and open an integrated terminal.
Why don't I see package.json?
You might
Um,
need to open the weather folder.
Why is it coming up with to-do folder? Okay, that's not right.
You might have slipped and opened the wrong folder.
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
Okay. The end result again should be, you should be able to see your weather app in your browser on localhost 3000 or something similar. Or try.
I'm sorry, Max. I'm slow today. All right. So I have the day 3, the
Mhm.
weather app. So I'm in VS Code.
You're going to right click on package.json and open an integrated terminal.
I did that.
Down at the bottom in the terminal, you're going to type in npm space install and hit enter.
Oh, I did start like a dummy. Okay. npm space install.
And that's going to regenerate out our node modules folder for us. So after that is done, you can do your npm start and that will get it running again.
Oh,
npm start. Yeah, hit yes. Okay. Now, do I need to delete anything out of anything else yet? We're not there yet.
You're all caught up. Once you see your weather app in your browser, you're good to go.
I have that. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need hope? Anyone else need help before I move forward?
no, but I have a question. What time did you go to sleep?
I think it was 12:45, which is a little late for me, but not super late. The mistake that I made was realizing that I had a 7:30 a.m. meeting.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
yeah, I definitely needed a nap today. Kalai, go ahead.
Can you check whether mine was installed properly, Max?
Yep, go ahead, share screen.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. This is the one. Can you see the?
No, your share screen didn't go through.
Oh, sorry. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like everything fired up right. Did your Chrome browser open?
No.
Okay, so what you can do is click in the terminal and hit Control C, not Command, but Control C.
Controls.
And what that will do is it will stop.
Oh, wait. In the terminal, you want me to click?
Yeah,
terminal?
like just click in the terminal window. So your cursor is focused in it, not on the word terminal itself, but in the window on the text. There you go. Click in there.
Control C, right?
Yes, but I don't think you're clicked in.
No.
Okay, now there you go. Okay, and now you can hit up, which will automatically fill out the last command that you ran, which will be npm start. So the yep, and then hit enter. And now that should pop it open and you're
Okay.
good to go.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
I'm back to where I needed to be. Now, I wasn't supposed to do this in the integrated terminal, was I?
No, nope, that's where you're supposed to do it. NPM install and NPM start.
Oh, okay. Do I have to worry about 6 high severity vulnerabilities?
No.
NPM start then.
Every copy of React right now has 6 high security vulnerabilities.
Okay, thanks.
And I wish I was joking about those. Okay, so where we left off, I'm gonna head over to my source in my app.js. We were making our 2 API calls. We were doing that in a use effect. We're using the async and await keywords. We did all the work to geocode our query. We've got our geocoding data here. We've got our weather response here. And we even were console logging it out. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to my inspect. I'm going to go look in my console, and I've got an object in here. And inside that object, there is something called a main key. And inside that main key, I have humidity and temp. Okay, but I've got my temp hanging out right here, but it's still set to 68 in here. What React concept do we need to use to update some data that's going to be shown to the end user?
Set,
Sets what?
set temperature. I
Which
guess.
comes from,
Looking.
you're not wrong, but where does that come from in React?
Well, we don't have state here, so we're using use effect, aren't we?
No, we're using use effect. We also need to use state. So we're going to import our use state. We are going to say const, and I'm going to call this weather data. And the reason I'm going to do that is because there are multiple pieces of information that we want to pull out of our API response. We're going to want not just the temperature, but we're also going to want the humidity and some other information as well. So I'm going to make it weather data, and I'm going to say set weather data. And that's going to come from use state. And we're going to make this, instead of a string or a number that we've used state before, we're going to make it an object. And remember, whatever value goes in that parentheses is what our weather data is going to start out as. In fact, I'm actually not going to do that. I take it back. I'm going to leave those empty. I'm going to see why in 1 second. So I've got my weather data, my set weather data. Now we've got to combine what we know we have access to in the console and set it into the state. So I'm going to look and I'm going to say, all right, I went into my object to get to main, and from my main, I have access to temp and to humidity. Those are the 2 pieces of information that I want to set in. So I'm going to go to my use effect, and I'm going to set the weather data to an object that has the temp that comes in from the current weather data .main.temp. I am also going to set in the humidity by going to the current weather data .main.humidity. I'm going to come over here and save, and it's still 68. What's the last thing we need to tell it to do?
To actually change, almost like an on change type thing.
We don't have to do that because it's in state. Because we're using the set function, it's smart enough to automatically go in and re-update that for us whenever we call the set. All we need to do is come down here and say, hey, instead of showing 68, show the current weather data .temp.
Okay.
On the right track, right? We just have to tell it, hey, actually make that show up. So I save, I come over here, and it says current weather data is not defined because it's just called weather data. So I save that. Now you got, oh, come on, Max. Weather data. Now my 39.4 shows up. Okay, that's nice, but maybe I don't want that 0.4 in there. So I'm going to go back up to where I set my temperature and put that whole thing in a math.round. I come over here, I got my temp showing up, and the last thing I'm going to do, just like I put it in my temp, I'm also going to put in my humidity. Weather data dot humidity. Is it actually 84? 80, yeah, looks like it. So now my humidity also shows up there. Pausing there, making sure you guys have all of that working.
Oh yeah, I need a minute.
So we imported our use state. We created the variable in state. We used our set to put in the information that was coming back from the results of the API call. And because we used our set function, it's smart enough to automatically recognize that these two pieces of data are in state, so that when we set the value in state, the value shows up in our user interface.
So for temp, we have to do math.round. And then, no, math round. This
Mhm,
again.
you were right, math.round, and then we just put the main temp inside that as the parameter.
Right, weather data. Okay. And did we apply math.round to the humidity also?
No, the humidity came in as a whole number already, so we didn't need to round it.
Oh, gotcha.
Can you show code again? I'm sorry.
That's the bulk of it. The only thing that we changed down here was the weather data.temp and weather data.humidity.
Can you see that again, please?
Hmm.
I'm just having a hard time following it. So no 40 degrees and 40%. Are those curlies? Curlies.
Mhm.
So mine is blank. I don't know if I did something wrong
Check your
or
console in the browser. And if you still need help, let me know.
Dot temp dot main. Okay. Well, I've got some errors to fix.
Anyone needs help? Go ahead, raise your hand. Fly.
In my browser when I was doing inspect, I'm not seeing anything, so I did inspect it, just showing full of error.
Share your screen. Let's take a
Yeah.
look. Okay, so it does not like line 47. So let's go up to that. And that is coming in, that appears to be right. So let's scroll up to where you do your set weather data.
It's basically I'm using US Max, so it's just like because mine was confused last night. So
Okay. I don't see any issues. Let me request remote. And if I just refresh. Oh, still the same problem. So let's do this. Let's console log your current weather data and refresh and where did our current weather data go? Okay, let me try this as a theory. And if it is this, okay. This is a good question because I am actually surprised it didn't break it before. So I'm actually going to switch over to mine to explain this.
Yeah, I was having the same issue.
So what is happening is if you, and I'm having this problem as well, if you refresh the page, now I get an all white screen. And the white screen is saying, cannot read properties undefined reading temp. Okay, well, what's happening here? We said, hey, this use effect is going to run. And it's going to run the first time the component shows up. But we already told the computer, hey, this stuff is going to happen asynchronously. So while the computer kicks off the API call and is waiting for that data to load in, it comes down here and it starts rendering out stuff. And so it gets to the emoji and it knows how to show that. And it gets to weather data and it's like, I still don't have the weather data. The weather data is an API call. It's running in the background. I don't know what the temperature is yet. So it comes over here and it's like, I can't tell you what the temp is. It's undefined. I don't know yet. In order to fix that, up before our return, we can say, if you don't have the weather data yet, return a div that says loading. Now, when we come over here, our page appears to be all there, but when we refresh it for a split second, you'll see that it says loading ... and then we'll show our weather information. Because it realizes that we don't have the weather data yet, it will hit this return and stop executing everything down here. It will basically say, hey, show loading if we don't have the weather data, but as soon as the set weather data gets set up here, it's going to rerun this, realize we have the return, the weather data, we can skip this return and actually return out the content we want. It's a very powerful and very commonly used feature in React. So take a minute to read through that code and make sure you understand it. This return, this if statement is actually going to run twice. The first time the page loads before we have the API call done, Then the API call is going to set the data into the state, and then it's going to rerun that return, realize we do have the weather data, and return out the content we're looking for. This is the only piece of new code that we added in that last step. Jennifer.
Hello. I can't figure out what's not working with this code. It's telling me I have something wrong online.
Okay, share screen.
Sorry. Let me just on it. What? There, okay. So it's giving me this error here.
You'll have to share your screen.
Oh, am I not?
Mm-mm.
Shoot. Okay.
There you go. Now you are. I see your desktop. Yep, you're good. Yep. Okay, so line 22. You're missing a comma after line 21. Or at the end of 21.
This spells humidity wrong. Missing a comma after line 21.
Yep, at the end of it.
Yeah, okay, so I did. Oh, I did that before and it didn't work because this humidity was spelled wrong.
That could have been, yes.
Okay. That's it.
Brandon, go ahead.
It's telling me that hold on. It's out of the way. It's telling me that use state is undefined, but I don't know what I have wrong.
You need to import it from React. So just like we import use effect, we also need to import use state. So look at my line 2 compared to your line 2.
Oh my god, there's always that one thing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Um
I'm a sneaky mofo, aren't I? Slipping lines of code in there. Where did that use state come from?
you just look over it like 15 times and then someone points it out and it's just like, oh yeah, the third word in the line. Great, love it.
Yeah, look
Where's
up
Waldo? Oh, there's Waldo.
for coding that's like, my life is over. What am I doing? What decision did I make? Oh, it was just a syntax error.
That was a big sigh, Archel.
I didn't realize my mic was on. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh goodness. All right. Mine's looking like it's working well. I'm like, all right, cool. I think I got this. Well, it's working, but it's yeah.
All right. One new concept we're going to throw your way before we go on break, and that is, how do we do images? There are actually a couple different ways of doing images. We are going to show you both of them, and then show you how we can do a dynamic image as well. So I'm going to go to Unsplash. And I'm going to unsplash.com, just royalty-free images. And I'm going to go download 2 images that I can use. So let's grab, I'm going to just do a search for Syracuse. That looks like a good one. So I'm going to download 1 image. And I don't know that I'm going to have a ton of other options. So instead, I'm going to go for this one, which I actually do think is on campus, on SU's campus somewhere. Maybe not, but we're going to roll with it because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so there are two places that we can use images. The first one, the more reacty way of using them, is by grabbing your first image and dragging it into your SRC folder. Now, once it's, make sure it's in your SRC folder, not outside of it. If we collapse that folder, we want to make sure that that disappears. And when we click on it, it reappears. Make sure that it is right inside your SRC folder. Now, I'm going to right click on that and rename that to pick one, just so it's a little bit easier to reference in our code. Now, normally we would come down here and I'm going to just put this in my return inside my app. I'm going to put in my IMG. And normally we would say src equals, and I would say pick1.jpg. Close it out, and I come over here and I get a broken image. Well, when we put things in this SRC folder, just like we import other components or files up here, we also need to import the picture. So I'm going to import pick1 from my pick1.jpg. Then, just like I have a variable declared here, I'm going to go back down to my IMG, and instead of passing in a string, I'm going to pass it I'm going to pass it pick1. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to add a style of like width 25%. And now I've got my image. Okay, so let me recap those steps. I downloaded 2 images. I drug one from my downloads folder into my SRC folder. I renamed that to pick1. Then I came back up to my import and said import pick1 from what file. And we always have to import it if we are using the image in the SRC folder. Then I'm going to scroll down and I put in my IMG tag, except now I'm going to put my SRC in as curly braces. Because React is dealing with the importing of the picture, it has that item almost as an object. So we reference the SRC pick1, and then I just happened to put in a style tag here so the image wasn't huge.
So if you bring in a folder of pics or logos or something like that or whatever, you would do the same thing, import, but you would import the folder?
Yeah, so I just moved my image into a folder called images. And then up here in the import, we would just include images as the file path. And then it will still work fine. I'm going to move that out, though, just for the sake of readability. But yes, using folders in the file paths are completely fine. Now, one thing to note is sometimes when you move your files around, it's going to break your compiler. So if you do run into something where you're like, can't resolve pick1, and you're like, pick1 is there, I know it's there. Sometimes you may need to go into your terminal and hit Control-C, which will stop it, and then hit Up Enter, that will restart it, and then you'll notice everything is working fine again. Sometimes when you import a file that doesn't exist, it gets really cranky with you and the live refresh doesn't work. Okay, that's the first way we can make a file work. There is a second way we can make a file work, and that is by putting it in the public folder. Whatever is in the public folder will be publicly accessible by the web browser. So I can go grab my second image and I'm going to drag and drop that into the public folder. Then I'm going to right click on that file and call it pic2.jpg. Then in my code, I don't need to import anything because it's public to the web browser already. Because of that, I can go down and add in another IMG tag. And this time the source is going to start with a first slash. That slash is representing everything inside this public folder. We are then able to put our pic2.jpg in there and still style it the same exact way. And then we go back over here and we see our second picture also shows up. So 2 different ways of doing it. One is putting your images in the SRC folder and importing them up at the top. The second way is putting your images inside the public folder. And Alba, before you ask, you can also use folders inside the public folder, and you would just, do /images/ and then whatever. And then we use a string to access that. Now you may be saying, well, Max, why are there 2 ways? Which one should I use? That is a long-ranging debate, and there are pros and cons to each system. So depending on which one makes more sense to you, use that one and stick with it. Until you get to being an advanced React engineer, there aren't really going to be enough pros or cons on either one of them to be more or less beneficial for you. And I could literally spend the rest of class talking about the pros and cons of both of them, but don't worry, I will spare you that. Whatever way makes more sense to you, stick with that way. Archer.
So your pictures, you have pic 1 and pic 2. Did you rename them as you were downloading them?
I renamed them after I drug them into the public and SRC folders.
You just right clicked on them and then you renamed them?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll come back to you if I need help after that. Thank you.
Yep. And after you rename them, you might need to restart your terminal with Control-C and then up enter because it doesn't like to import files after they've been renamed.
Okay, so can I do this like save as and then go to my weather folder?
Yep, that works too.
Do I go into public, save?
Yep.
and then I should be able to search for it.
And one more thing that I'll touch on. React is very accessibility focused. And so for people who may have vision problems or some accessibility, the React will tell you whenever you use an IMG tag, it says it must have an alt property either with meaningful text or an empty string for decorative images. Right. So basically it's saying, hey, whenever you use an IMG tag, be considerate of accessibility concerns and add in the description so that if a screen reader is going through this, the screen reader can tell the user what that image is of. So I can put in an alt tag here that says Syracuse #1 and Syracuse #2. You should be descriptive with your alt tags and not just put in image or picture, because the thinking there is if screen reader is going through the site, that the description or the alternate of the image can be read to the user. So that makes our warnings in our terminal go away and make it so if you hover over the image in your browser, you'll see a little tooltip that comes up, usually with the alt description. Or not, but that does resolve the issues in your terminal by adding your alt tag in whenever you use an image. So all I've got for before break. You can go on break, be back at 7:25. I will stick around for a couple minutes in case anyone needs help with their images.
Yes, please.
You want to share your screen, Jennifer? Or are
Yeah,
you still working on it?
well, I've got my images where I want them, I think, but not having the right page come up. My React.
All right, share your screen. Let's take a look. Okay, so you're missing your closing slash and arrow on line 70.
Okay.
Okay, and now it can't find pick one because you put pick one in your public folder. So we did it two different ways. Pick one, we put in the SRC folder so we could import it. So I'm going to take your pick one here and move it into your source folder.
Okay.
And then you also called it .json. And I don't think your image is JSON. I think it's going to be a JPEG.
I don't know how I did that.
Oh, I don't know how I did a JSPG. JPEG. There we go. So now if I'm just going to make that a self-closing tag. Oh, here's the problem. You've got an arrow in there. There we go. Now, if we go back to your Chrome. Clear all this out and refresh. We've got an error, cannot read properties undefined of reading temp. So we fix that by hold on. Okay, you're setting the temp and the humidity in. So we don't need to use .main because the temperature is getting set right into the object that we're creating right here.
Okay.
So if we go back over and refresh, now we've got still a broken image. So let's figure out what's going on there. We did our import pick one from pick1.jpg. Oh, maybe it wasn't a JPEG. Maybe it was PNG.
Oh.
No, it wasn't a PNG either. Maybe this got created by accident and your picture is actually this one. That's
Well,
one, that's the other. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to move into your SRC folder. And I'm going to rename that. Nope. I'm going to rename this as pick one. And that's an AVIF file. I don't know if React is going to play nice with that. Let's find out. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. Go to Chrome. There it is.
okay, now why do I still have all my temperatures coming up at 68 degrees?
We didn't do anything on the forecast. We only did this current temp as 39.
Okay. All right.
So you just have to work on getting pick two working now, and then you'll be all caught up.
Thank you.
No problem. Exona, go for it.
Okay, so mine says this.
So it's looking for pick.jpg, but your file name is pick1.jpg.
Okay. Hold on. Thanks,
No problem.
because I can't read. Thank you.
Brandon, go ahead. To be fair, it's easier to debug someone else's code than it is your own.
Before Brandon goes, what time are we coming back? Sorry.
7:25.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You can go to Kalai. I think I might have figured it out.
You got it, Kalai, go for it.
It's showing kind of same error and I'm not seeing anything in the browser, so I'm just sharing it.
Um,
I don't know whether it's the same problem continuing again or just.
let me request remote control so I can poke around. Did we end up putting in? So you're missing your if there isn't weather data, then return a div that says loading.
I didn't do anything, Max. It's the same thing. I didn't change anything. I don't know. I didn't like usually sometimes I copy yours, but this time I just stay. Okay, I want to stay with it. So I don't know how it disappeared. So
That
okay,
we did that as an in-between step. So that could be why you missed that. I only added this to my I only added this to my code after I realized it was broken on yours.
oh, okay. But after you changed it, I didn't do anything. So I don't know where it was. So, but is this my browser, like the image attached was right or is it?
Yep.
Is it right? Okay, thank you.
So you just need your image 2. If you want to do it the other way, or if this way makes sense to you, you can just leave it as is.
No, I want to try that one, but I can try it myself. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. Archel, go for it.
All right. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yep.
All right. All right. So this I have to put the alt like you did on yours, right? I pretty much have to explain. That'll get rid of that. All right. Now on this side, I have my 2 images there. I do notice that the time's a little off. Is that something we'll fix?
Yeah, we just hard coded it.
Got it.
That will, we'll go back to that.
All right. So once I put in the alt there, I'll fix this. All right. So I think I'm up to speed then.
I believe you are.
All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Last call for questions. All right, see you guys at 7:25. Oh, Jennifer, I just saw you come off mute. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what you guys did when it came to that second image.
So that we left that image in the public folder, and then on 82 of my code is where we added in that second IMG tag.
82 of your code. Okay, I'll look at that. Thank you.
Yep. Alba, did you have a question?
Yeah, I went to use the bathroom. When I came back, everything was shredded.
That's always refreshing, isn't it?
Like, what happened?
Share your screen. Let's take a look. Pick 1 is not defined. So that's going to be an import issue all the way up at the top of app.js.
Okay, so I just need to write the import here, right?
Yep. And then you should be back in business.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Artrell, is that another hand raise?
Yeah, no quick question. So my image, my picture 2,
Yeah.
I actually left it in my my SRC folder. I just put it right below import pick 1. So that's my line 4 up top in my app.js. Is that okay?
Share your screen.
Okay. Hold on. All right, lower hand. Screen share. So all right, so I put it here instead of
Oh,
my
okay. Yeah, so you can do it that way. When you do it that way, you just use the curly braces. So if you look at my line 81 verse 82, we use the curly braces pick 1 when we import it. But if it's in the public folder, we use the quotes instead.
Okay.
So it is totally fine to do it the way you did it. It is also totally fine to do it the second way I did it with those quotes. It's just a matter of where that picture lives. So I teach both methods because you'll see both methods out in the wild when you're professionally writing React code. So that's why I teach both. But
Right.
the way you did it on both of them is completely fine.
All right, so I was trying to download my pictures. I missed the part of you talking about the second method. So I'm like, only one picture showing up. I'm like, well, let me just work with picture one. So that's what I did.
Yes. Yeah. The other way of doing it is putting pick 2 in your public folder and then using the syntax on 82 instead of 81.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem.
Enjoy your break.
Thanks. Last questions. Last call for questions. Cool. So we're making good progress. We got our images showing up. I want to do one more thing with images to get a little practice. So I'm going to go back over to my code and I'm going to console log out all of the data that I am getting back from the API. So I go into my console, I take a look, and I'm browsing around here, and we played around in the main, and we got the temperature and all of that stuff. And it's saying there's cloud information, there's coordinates in here. But if I go down into this weather and open up this 0, I can see this thing that says icon 04N. And I'm like, what the heck is 04N? What does that mean? So I'm going to go back to Open Weather Map. I'm going to wait for their stupid page to load. Just such a terrible UI. Okay, there we go. Then I'm going to go to their API. I'm going to go down to the current weather data and look at the API doc. And here's the API call that we were making, right? It's got our all of our data coming back in it. It's showing us the example of everything, but I'm going to scroll down here until I find somewhere in here there's an icon. And to prove that, I'm going to hit Command F and type in icon. And here's showing me the example of the icon, but I'm going to hit enter again. And it's okay, the weather icon ID, give me more. So I'm going to keep on hitting enter until I get down to this. And it says, hey, list of weather condition codes. This is all of the icons, range of thunderstorm, drizzle, rain, snow, blah, 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 blah. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that weather condition codes. And what it shows me is, hey, I can get access to that URL using whatever code they give me. So to prove that, I can copy this URL, open a new window and paste it, and I get back the little partly cloudy, rainy thing. And to test that, if I get back, I don't know, a snow code, not that we would ever get that in Syracuse, if I come over here and type in 13D, I get the little snow icon. Like, okay, cool. That's what I want to use instead of my emoji. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at where that weather code is. That is in my current weather data object. I went into weather and that was an array. So I know I'm going to need an array index. And then inside of that, there's another object that has the icon in it. So I'm going to go to my code and I'm going to say icon code is in my current weather data. In this object called weather, in this key called weather, I went into the first index, so that is bracket 0, and then I finally got access to the icon. And while I'm in there, I might as well pull that current weather condition as well. So I'm going to say current condition is my current weather data dot weather bracket 0 dot main. So I did all of that. Now that data is in my state, so I am able to use that down here. So I come down to where my icon is, and I say, hey, get the weather data dot icon code. Say that I come over here and I get this lovely 04N, which I'm sure all of our users will know exactly what 04N is. No, just kidding. We're going to go back to that URL that we had in the documentation. And I will go ahead and paste this into the live stream as well, in case you don't have the documentation open. So we are going to take advantage of the images that we just learned how to do. Now, we already talked about this first style is when we import it from the SRC folder. But this image isn't actually coming from the SRC folder. It's coming from some URL. Because of that, we are going to use this second style to get our image to work. But we're going to combine that with Jennifer's favorite, a template literal. So we're going to go up here and we're going to say, hey, we want an IMG to show up. The SRC is going to be this template literal. But instead of 10D showing up every single time, instead what's going to show up is our weather data icon code coming from state, which was made from an API call in our use effect. So I come over and I look at my code, and now I've got cloudy. And while I'm in here, we also did our icon code. That means down where we have cloudy, we can put our weather data dot current condition, and we get clouds. Stopping there, opening a poll. So all the work that we did was up here. We added our icon code and current condition. The additional things that we updated down here, we took out our emoji and used our icon code and an image tag. And then we also updated our current condition down here to show cloudy.
Where you said you posted the link on live stream?
Yes, in Slack. Or you can just copy and paste from my live share if that's easier.
Oh my God.
Oh, and while I'm at it, I hope, yeah, I'm going to make this HTTPS. That's just a more secure way of requesting the image file.
Your browser, Max.
It should show the image, and then it should say like clouds or whatever the condition is over here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
So mine doesn't show, it just shows a blank image.
Share your screen.
I don't know if I think I forgot to put icon code somewhere.
Oh, you've got an extra D before the at sign.
Where? What line? D?
40. Right after icon code, it says icon code D at 2x PNG. That
Oh.
D shouldn't be in there.
Thanks.
No problem.
Next, I have all of that, but I have a syntax error on line 1.
Okay, share your screen.
Like, hasn't come up before. So this is what I have coming up.
So go ahead and refresh your screen and see if it's still there. It is. How did manifest.json? Oh, I know what happened. I think you renamed the wrong file. Remember how we had a .json image and we didn't know where that .json came from? I think you accidentally renamed the file in VS Code. Is it gonna? No, it's not gonna let me. Come on. Can you take me over to VS Code?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I believe there is, yeah, you're missing a file called manifest.json. Can I fix that in here? Yeah. There you go. You're back in business.
How did I do that?
You had a file in public, everyone does, called manifest.json, which gives the browser more information about the icons. But when we renamed pick 1 or pick 2, we accidentally renamed manifest.json over here and it got deleted.
Huh.
So it's not a super important file for the projects we're working on. All right, looks like we've got most everyone voted in here. Does anyone else need help? Brandon, go ahead.
Not sure where, hold on, because I have,
Yep. So in your image, you're using, oh,
what's up?
no, you're not. I'm wondering. All right, let me just check down here. Okay, you've got that running in the background. I'm wondering if that's just an old error. If we no, because it's still not loading in that image. So openweathermap.org/img/wn, but it's using clouds. So if I go back to your VS Code, what we set in, instead of setting in .main, what we want to set in is the .icon. Because we also set in something called current condition. And that comes from our current weather data .weather .0.main. And then we use that down here.
Okay,
So now,
there we go.
good to go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we just did 2 sets there. We added 2 items to the state and then use that in our code. All right, looks like everyone is voted in. Do we have any questions or need a review of anything before we go forward here? Okay. So I'm gonna go back to my desktop one. Artrell noticed something here. This says Thursday, 7:33. We probably want that to actually show like the current time, right? So I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna find where we've got that coded as 7:33. And I'm going to do curly braces and say, hey, go get the current date and convert that to the locale time string. If I save that, now I've got this lovely 742. That is a perfect example of the power of JSX syntax, right? We were able to use the date function in JavaScript and the built-in locale time string, and that automatically just dropped in our current time. Pretty cool. Now we've got some other information that's hard-coded in here. The wind is hard-coded, the precipitation chance is hard-coded. That's fine. We're going to leave those for now. If you want to give yourself a little extra credit, you can also go through the data, find where the precipitation and wind is, and make that updated based off of the API call. What your homework is going to be, which is not posted yet, but I will post right after class, is you're going to make this forecast section pull the live data from the Open Weather Map API. But we're going to set you up for success there. What we're going to do is we're going to move this information into state. Why would we move this into state, knowing what your homework is?
So it doesn't disappear.
Not that it's going to disappear. What do we need to link through the state? What we're going to do is eventually we're going to set up our API call to set the weather data, the forecast data into state to automatically reflect this information. But I'm going to set you guys up there with the state structure, so it's a little bit easier to set it in once you guys get the API call working for homework. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go up to my use states, and I'm going to make a new state called forecast data and set forecast data. And that's going to use state, but this time we are going to set an initial value for that. Now, what kind of data structure do we want to use here?
Object.
An object, because we are going to store Thursday, the icon and the temperature, but we want to store that for all 5 days. So what are we going to use in addition to an object?
An array of objects.
We're going to use an array of objects. So we're going to say day is Thursday. The temp is 22. And the icon is going to be, and I'm going to keep using emojis just for this. And then I'm going to copy this and paste it 4 times. If I can count. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it's just going to keep on getting warmer all week. Just kidding. It's probably not. Grab the sun, grab the rainbow, grab the rain, and grab the other sun. Nope. Okay. Now that I'll give you guys a minute to catch up on that. So where you take our forecast data, that is an array in state that contains objects which have 3 keys, and the values are the day, the temperature, and the icon. We are then going to take that, and down here, we have all of our forecast days. Okay. But I also have that data all up in the state, and this is really what I want to use, because when we get the API data, we're going to set that information into the state. So what can we use down here to bridge the gap between the state and our custom component? What function do we use in React to deal with arrays to get components?
.map.
.map. We're going to take our forecast data and we're going to map over it to get the day's weather. Day's weather isn't the right word. Day info. And day info is going to return a forecast day with the day coming from the day info dot day, the icon coming from the day info dot icon, and the temp coming from the day info dot icon. Dot temp. What am I doing? So now I say if I come over here, I just made a 10-day forecast without meaning to. Whoops. Let's come back over here and delete out all of our forecast days. I'm over here, and now I've got my 22, my 32, my 42, my 52, and my 62. All right.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I had to cut you off. Quick question. Because in the forecast day function, day icon and temp are destructured, is it necessary for us to put the dots on them, or did any of that change because how we're passing the state down now?
When you say the dots, you mean these dots?
Yeah, I mean like the properties of the object.
So because this is an object up when we first create it, the dots are accessing the keys inside the object.
Right, I understand that, but you see how the forecast function is destructured at the bottom? The forecast function that's at the bottom of the page. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so because it's expecting those parameters when it comes in, like, can we just say like day? Or like, and I could be wrong, but so what is day and icon and temp now being passed down in the forecast day? I'm sorry,
So-
that's probably like a confusing way to say it, but do you understand? I'm just not sure like how those link up, like the destructured keys there, and then like versus the ones that we took from the state.
So these destructured ones are lining up with the name of these props here. However, the day icon and temp are lining up from the day info, which is coming from the map over the forecast data that lines up with these keys up here.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the connection I was missing.
So
thank you.
everyone else pause for a second. If you're still getting this stuff, that's fine. What we could do, if you wanted to make this a little more complicated, we could call this like day of week. And I'll just do it on this one to prove. When we come down here, we would then have to update this to say day of week, and it would still work over here because this is what needs to line up with the object coming out of the map, as opposed to this, which needs to line up with the destructured props down here.
Okay, I got it. That makes perfect sense.
Putting that back. and repolling. So the reason why we moved this into state is because what you guys are going to do over the weekend is make another API call. Then using the results of that API call, you're going to set the weather, the forecast data back into state to show the actual weather. And so in order to get that working, I'm going to leave a comment in here for you guys that says, make another API call using open weather map. And I will even put in the name of the API for you. So only 3 steps you need to do. You are going to make another API call to the daily forecast API. Don't forget to parse it, just like we do up here. Then you guys are going to, just like we set the weather data here, you're going to start pulling apart that object to figure out where the data is in the API response to get all 5 days worth of information set into the forecast data. If you do that properly, that means over here, that will automatically update. Do we have any questions about the homework?
I don't have questions about the homework, but what does that, oh, yeah, at the end of that, okay, cool, thanks. From the.
And I will have that posted on Canvas by 9 o'clock tonight, and it will be due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Okay, that is all we've got for the weather app. Do we have any questions on this code before we move on to getting our blog project set up? We're just going to do the project setup and get React Router installed, and then we will call it a night, just so that when we start on Monday, we've got a lot that we can work with. Do you feel like you could go through this code and from top to bottom explain what everything is doing? Take 2 minutes to do that. Read through it and see, hey, is there any line number that I have a question on or don't understand what it's doing? Making the project work is only half the battle. The other more challenging part of the battle is making sure you understand what it's doing.
It's hit and miss.
Do we have any questions on anything before we roll forward?
Could you please show us where that weather app API website is again? It's in the Slack, you said?
Yeah, I posted a link to I posted a link to it in the live stream. This is just to the image URL, but if you go to openweathermap.com and go to their API, there were two of them that we used. One was the current weather data. So I will post a link to that. And the other one that you guys are going to be using is the forecast, which is this one right here. And I will post a link to that. Mel actually already beat me to it in the Zoom chat. One second. I just want to get this posted. Okay, that is now live on Canvas as well. So we are going to move on to our project setup for our blog project, which we will be starting on Monday. So in order to get that up and running, I'm going to go to I'm going to share my screen. Now I'm going to go, instead of creating this in the day 3 folder, because we're going to be primarily working on this next week, I'm going to go ahead and create my week 15 folder already. Then in my week 15 folder, I'm going to create my day 1 folder. Then I am going to head to my terminal and type in my CD and a space. Do not forget the space, CD space, before you come over, grab your day 1 folder and drag that into your terminal. Then you are going to npx create React app blog. And you can go ahead and hit enter on that. And normally this is where we would be done in the terminal, but we need one more command here. We are going to npm install react-router-dom, DOM for the document object model. This is going to be our first project where we have multiple pages set up in React so that we can actually route between them. So we're going to do npm install react-router-dom and hit enter on that. That one should run pretty quickly. Oh, That was a mistake. My bad. If you still have your day one folder open, you can see there are node modules, package lock.json and package.json. Notice they are conveniently outside of our blog project. Whoops, did not mean to do that. My bad. So if you have not run the npm install React Router DOM command yet, that's fine. If you did run it, come over to these 3 files, basically everything except our blog project, and delete them. Then in our terminal, we're going to cd into the blog project, then run React Router DOM. So the commands are, and I'll put this in Slack. It is going to be cd
So what does this router thing do?
We are going to learn that probably right now. Okay, so once you've got your blog created, I put the steps in Slack, but I know I made a mistake there. So if anyone needs help, let me know. I'm going to grab the blog project. I'm going to move that into my VS Code. I'm going to start it the way we always start it, with right click, open an integrated terminal, and an npm start. That is going to take me to my new React page, and I should be good to go in here.
So once, sorry, but once you put npm install react dash router dash DOM,
Yep.
what do you do on there?
Did you cd into your blog folder first?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're all set in the terminal after you do that install command. Then you can
Mhm.
switch over to VS Code, pop open your terminal, and npm start it.
So you mean drag the blog into VS Code
Yes,
and then package.json,
yes.
open into. And this was mpx. So npm
start
start.
with a space.
Yep.
All right, we're only going to do one more setup step tonight, and that's just going to be creating our 2 different pages on the blog. We do have a third one, but we're going to create that one as we get to it. So we're just going to learn the concepts of the router here. So I'm going to go into my src folder. I'm going to pop open my app.js. We're going to delete out the header like we always do. We're going to go to our app.css, and we're going to delete everything inside of that, so we get back to a plain white screen. Again, app.js, delete the header, should just have that div tag in there, and then go to app.css and delete everything out inside of that file. Then we're going to create some new files over here. So I'm going to create my one file called home.js, and I'm going to create another file called create post.js. Actually, I lied. I'm going to call that post editor. And once I have both of those created, I need to make them actual components. So I'm going to say const post editor is equal to a function that's going to return a div that has an h1 that just says post editor. And then we are going to export it so we can access it on other pages. And I'm going to repeat that step with the home page. I'm going to say const home equals return div with an h1 that says home. And I'm going to export the default home so we can access it in other pages.
Are we using the same live?
What's that?
Are we using the same live, or did you create a new live?
Oh, I can create a new live. There you go. So we created two new files, one called home.js, one called posteditor.js. They look very similar internally, one of which is going to have an h1 that says post editor, the other one that says home.
Are we exporting them?
Yes. We have not imported them yet, though.
Okay.
Max, we're really far behind.
Mhm.
And I'm in my terminal. How do I get out of my folder? Do I go CD up?
What do you mean get out of your folder?
I'm in the terminal. I'm in week 15 day 1 blog, but I hadn't set it up right first. So
Go
how
ahead,
do
share your screen. Let's take a look.
how do I get out of here?
Let me press remote control. So I'm gonna ls to see.
It's not the right folder because I hadn't copied it correctly before.
Okay, so if you do you want to delete this folder or empty the folder? Do you what are these files?
Maybe they are there.
Because this is supposed to be a React project and these aren't React files.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to get that and go backwards. I want to start over.
Okay, so we're gonna cd up to your my code. We're gonna remove the week 15 day 1 remove the week 15 day 1 blog. Then we're gonna remake that folder week 15 day 1 blog. Then we're gonna move into it. And now we can npx create React app blog.
All right, thanks, Max.
And then we're gonna, once it's done, we're gonna cd into the blog. And then we are going to npm install React router DOM. And then you can pop that open in VS Code. You're good to go. Yep. Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Whenever we run React, we just npm npx was npx to execute creating the React files?
Correct. npm is to start the React server. npx is to create the React app.
Okay, and you know how it says like it's not in build state or something about optimization? What's that about?
You can ignore that. That's basically saying when we go to actually deploy our code, we want to optimize it. But what's running right now is the developer version of it. That's easier to debug.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We will get to that when Nathan comes back for deploys round 2. He'll show you how to deploy your React apps.
Heard.
All right, let's pull this all together. One last push. We are going to create our first router because you may notice, Max, I have this home file in this post editor, but we've never actually had a multi-page React app. We've never had 2 pages. How do we go about doing something like that? Well, we need to use something called the React router. So we're going to import 2 things. We're going to import the browser router, and we are also going to import a route itself. Then in our div class app, we're going to say, hey, we're going to use a browser router. And that router is going to have access to 2 routes. One of those routes is going to be at our home page. And the element that it's going to show is our home here. And you notice I'm heavily using that autocomplete. So when I typed in HO, it gave me that pop-up box. When I hit enter, not only did it autocomplete it here for me, it also added the import for it up at the top. I'm also going to set up a route for my path for my post editor, which is going to use an element that has my post. And you see my autocomplete here. It's got that /post editor at the end. VS Code is helping me out by auto importing that. So once I've got this typed out and I see that it knows where my post editor is, I'm going to hit enter on that. That automatically imports it for me, but I still need to close out my tags. Yes, this is a tricky one because we've got a route tag, and inside the route tag, we've got another element, another tag inside of it. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back over to my browser, and I'm going to refresh, and now I've got an error that I forgot one step. I forgot about my routes. Sorry, I forgot this step. So if you guys are following along with me here, make sure you've got an import up here for browser router, routes, and route. Make sure you've got your home and your post editor imported. Then in our app, we've got a browser router that has a component of routes inside of it. And inside of that, we've got 2 different routes. One with the path of that empty slash that's going to take us over to our home. Make sure you have these opening tags. This will not work if you just pass it home. You've got to pass it the home element, the home tag. Then we also have a path for our post editor, and that is going to our post editor element, which was imported from our file. And the last thing we're going to do to test if all of this is working, I'm going to go to my home.js file. And I'm going to add up at the top, import link from my React router DOM. And then I can add a link to my post editor and say, go to post editor. And the last step for the night is to test it out. I've got a link. I click on go to post editor. It takes me to my post editor and we are done for the evening. No, that was a lot of code. I will stick around, answer any questions, but we've got our router set up. We've got our blog project ready to go for Monday. We installed our React router DOM. We took a couple built-in components outside of it from the browser router, the routes in the route. Then we defined our browser router, and for whatever reason, browser router only works when it's got a routes tag in there. And then we defined two different routes. We said our path, our home page, is going to take us to the home page element that's being imported from our home file that has the home component in it. And we also said, hey, when you go to post editor, take you over to the post editor component. Then in our home page, instead of using an A tag, that anchor tag, we use this new component that's built into React Router called link. And in that link, instead of using an href, we use the word to, and we match that route post editor to whatever the path is in our home, in our app.js. From there, when we go look in the browser and we're on our home screen, we can now click on go to post editor and it takes us to that second page. Code is much more complicated than the actual reality of what it's doing behind the scenes. Take a minute to read it. And if you get it and everything's working and you can click on your link, get out of here, go enjoy your weekend. Don't forget about the homework.
So I'm a bit, yeah, I still feel like I'm thinking through soup. Can you stay with me afterwards?
Yep.
For a few minutes.
Sure can.
I have an issue. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Mine's just a general question.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'm not able, when I hit npm start,
Mhm.
I get this weird error about like internal bootstrap switches, cache raw methods. It's stuff that I can't really, it doesn't look like it's referencing anything in the actual code, so I'm not
Share
sure
your
what's going
screen.
on.
Let's take a look.
Okay. I think it's this one. I can't tell. I can't tell where the screen is.
That's not
Do
pretty.
do you see what's up
I
there?
do.
Okay. Oh, okay, cool. I'm looking at the other screen. All right. Yes, I have no idea what that is. I don't know
Give
if maybe I
me
screwed some.
remote access.
Mm-hmm. How do I do that? Oh, proof. Okay.
Thank you. What do you mean ls is not permitted? Okay, we ended up someplace weird in your terminal. So I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna attempt to reopen it. I'm gonna ls. Okay, now we're back in business. So you're good to go. And I'm just gonna say yes to start on another port. And click on that. And you're good.
All right.
Just closing
you.
your terminal and restarting it is what fixed it.
Cool beans. Thank you.
Yeah, whenever you get an error that's that ugly, it's like, start over. Shiner, you had a question?
Yeah, regarding the importing,
Mhm.
can you show your code again?
Mhm.
So, app.js is opening into home.js. Is that what's happening there?
App.js is including 2 routes. It's telling the browser, hey, we've got 2 different routes you can access. The first path is accessing home. That is coming from the home component in that separate file that we created. It
Mhm.
also has the post editor component that is also getting imported from a separate file. And it's telling the browser, hey, whenever you see the path /post editor in the URL, go show the post editor component.
Okay. So how many like links can you have at a time?
Thousands.
Oh, so there's no set limit. Gotcha. Because
No.
I'm trying to apply this to my capsule because mine will have multiple, pages. So I'm trying to figure out how I go about making them open when you click from one page to another.
Yep. And we're going to be going back to the blog project and making that reusable component page that is showing all of the contents of the current blog posts that we have open. So we'll be getting more practice with the router early next week.
Heard. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Hey, Max, I have a quick question about the homework.
Yep.
Do we have to create a new key? My key's not working.
Your API key isn't working? Wrappers. Give me a second. I wonder if the forecast is one you've got to pay to use.
It's just telling me invalid API key. Please see https openweathermap.org error 401 for more info.
Hmm, 25 forecast daily. Yes, it most certainly is. Okay. API keys. Oh, crap. Okay, you're gonna have to use a link to the wrong 5-day, 3-hour forecast. I think I linked to the wrong forecast API. Yes, I most certainly did. Let me go fix that. Add the link. Save and go to Slack. Okay, that one should work without having to make a new API key. Thank you for catching that before all mayhem broke loose this weekend. Brandon, go ahead.
I'm getting an error that says compile with problems, module not found. It like can't resolve the .home and post editor.
Okay, share your screen. So you created your home.js and post editor in your public folder. They're supposed to be in the source folder.
Okay, that's what I thought might have been the issue because I was having some problems at first. So I just found the blog folder and just moved it to the day one after. So would I just need to do that with those as well?
Yeah, move post editor and home.js into your source folder, and then you might need to restart your terminal, and then it should work fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Kalai, go ahead.
Can you please check them because I kind of because I think I missed the class with a block, so I have to copy yours. So it took a while for me to do the router and all. So right now I just did whatever I heard. So can you just check whether whatever I did?
Yep. Go for it. So can you click on go to post editor? Then you're all set. You're good to go.
But I didn't do the router thing yet. So is that, do I need to do something with router?
In app.js, that should have your router in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, you've got some import is label with internally disabled control on line 6. Go ahead and delete that. That was some weird autocomplete.
The old line?
The whole line, all of line 6 can be deleted. Yep, you're good.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help? If you've got your link working, you can head out. You are good to go.
Like,
Artrell, go for it.
Yeah, I'm having some terminal issues. Can you help me like after Jennifer, perhaps?
Oh no, terminal issues. Are you dying?
I'm mad
I
I
mean,
laughed at that.
I guess we are all dying, but go ahead, share your screen. It's probably going to be a quick fix.
All right. It's embarrassing, but yeah, I'll do it. All right.
Nothing embarrassed about it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, yes.
So,
I was trying to drag it in and I'm just dumb.
Yep. So to drag in, we always have to do, oh, give me remote.
Okay, on. All right.
Okay. So before we drag anything in, we've got to do the CD space first. Then we can drag in our day one folder and hit enter. And that's what's going to get us into the day one folder. From there, we've got an empty folder called blog. We don't want that because when we do our npx create React app, it's going to create that blog folder for us. Once that is done running, we are also going to do an npm install create React. Oh, I'm typing the wrong thing. Give it a second to finish. We are going to npm install React router DOM. And, oh, I did the same mistake. We cd into blog first, then we install React router DOM. And once we're done with all of that, that's when we can drag it into VS Code.
to the left.
Thank you. Everything I own in a box to the left. Then we can pop open our integrated terminal and do our npm start. And say yes on that. And you are good to go.
Thank you, Max.
No problem. Anyone else need help before I spend some time with Jennifer?
I just want to say I'm getting the hang of the JXS stuff. It's not that scary anymore.
Nice. The React router syntax is a little tricky, but once you stop battling your JavaScript in your HTML or vice versa, it becomes a lot more friendly.
For sure. I mean, I'm starting to see those use cases and I'm like, oh yeah, this does speed things up. Okay. I did not like it at first, not gonna lie.
Neither did I. I thought I did a lot of homework because I was choosing between React and Angular 7 years ago. And I was like, this is dumb. I can't believe this is never going to take off. React is never going to be popular. And I'm very glad that I stuck with it because it is by far the dominant web framework of today.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to take time from Jennifer to freaking talk about React, but yeah, another one-on-one. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, let me stop this recording.